This is Sky News.
Joining me now is the Attorney-General, George Brandis. Welcome to the program.
Hi, David.
Let's start with this plan for mandatory retention of metadata. What is metadata in your view?
Well, metadata is the best metaphor I can give you is imagine a letter, right? The metadata is the name and address on the envelope, not the content of the letter. So,
what if I'm online though?
I was going to give you the example of mobile phone communication, which is the most commonly used device by the security agencies. They can't access the content of calls, the content, of course, isn't retained, but the metadata is the phone number from which the call is initiated, the phone number to which the call is made, the identity of the owners of those numbers, the location from which the call is made, and the location of the recipient of the call.
The time and the duration.
The time, the duration. That's metadata.
It gets more complicated when you talk about online.
Well, it does a little, but essentially it's the same principle. It's not content. It's the details of the call. What basically has until now been maintained by the telcos for billing purposes. So we're not really asking the telcos to do anything other than they already do. But the difficulty here, I think I've explained.
Well, do they all do this? Do they all?
Well, this is the point.
I mean, does Dodo, for example, do they hold this stuff?
Well, I don't know about. I don't want to talk about particular companies, but the general industry standard or practice has been that they've maintained this data for billing purposes because people used to be billed on a call-by-call basis, for example, in the case of phone calls. But now, of course, the phone companies sell blocks of time, and they bill according to blocks of time. So so increasingly, it won't be necessary for the companies, for their own purposes, to keep these as business records. But
okay. Well, the Prime Minister said today it's not what you're doing on the internet; it's the sites you're visiting. So, will it be the sites that you're visiting?
Well, it wouldn't extend to, for example, web surfing. So what people are viewing on the internet is not going to be caught.
So it's not the sites you're visiting?
Well, what people are viewing on the internet when they web surf is not going to be caught. What will be caught is the web address they communicate to.
Okay, so it's only the web address. If I go to an internet site, that will be recorded and available.
The web address is part of the metadata.
The website.
The web address. The electronic address of the website.
Okay, but if I go to the Sky News website, the Australian website, a more questionable website, that will be. Is that what we're talking about here?
Well, what you're viewing on the internet is not what we're interested in, and that's not what we regard.
But you'll be able to see whether I've been to that website or that website or that website.
Well, what the security agencies want to know to be retained is the electronic address of the website that the web user is visiting.
So it does tell you the website.
Well, it tells you the address of the website.
That's the website, isn't it? It tells you what website you've been to.
Well, when you visit a website, people browse from one thing to the next, and that browsing history won't be retained, or there won't be any capacity to access that.
Excuse my confusion here, but if you are retaining the web address, you are retaining the website, aren't you?
Well, every website has an electronic address, right?
Yep. And that's recorded.
Whether there's when a connection is made between a one computer terminal and a web address, that fact and the time of the connection and the duration of the connection is what we mean by metadata in that context.
But that is telling you where I've been on the web.
Well, it records what electronic web address has been accessed.
I don't see the difference between that and what websites.
When you go to a website, commonly you will go from one web page to another, from one link to another within that website. That's not what we're interested in.
Okay. So the overarching, if I go to Sky News website, it'll tell that, but not necessarily the links within that I go to.
Yes.
Okay. What about social media?
That's being developed. Please understand, David, that what has been decided is an in-principle decision, and the extent to which social media will be involved in this is something that is under discussion at the moment.
What's your position on this? Would you like to see?
Well, I don't want to preempt the discussions, but I think we are going down, as it were, the wrong path here, because what the agencies are, the security agencies are in fact primarily interested in at the moment is mobile phone traffic.
But what if I have a Skype conversation with someone, a Google chat, a FaceTime conversation?
Those are the things that we are in discussion with
You'd like to be able to see who I'm talking to, wouldn't you?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, we want to...
That's the same as a phone call.
We want to maintain the sharp distinction between metadata and content, and for reasons that, for example, you adverted to in our previous discussion, sometimes that distinction is blurred, and that's why
that's a problem.
That's why we're developing protocols to try and ensure that the integrity of that distinction is maintained.
But if terrorists are talking on Skype, that may not be caught.
Well, we want it to be caught, but in terms of data retention, I mean, not all Skype conversations are going to correspond to the description of metadata.
All right, let me ask you this. Is the information that is kept going to be used just for investigating terrorism or for other criminal acts?
Our primary focus is terrorism, but the fact is that access to metadata is an extremely useful criminal investigative tool. I understand, for example, that when Jill Meagher was murdered in Victoria a little while ago, it was access to metadata that assisted the Victorian police in tracking down her killer.
With a warrant.
With a warrant. I've discussed this matter with my counterpart in the United Kingdom recently, who tells me that this is also used to track down pedophile rings. So,
what about downloading illegal content? Would it be used?
We're not interested in that. We're not interested.
So there's some point at which
this is at its heart a counter-terrorism measure.
Okay, I've got to ask you finally about the Racial Discrimination Act changes. You were, even the night before the Cabinet meeting, here on Sky News explaining why 18C needed to go. Next day, Tony Abbott announces they're being kept. Were you rolled on this?
Well, you know what this business is like, David. You know, you win a few, you lose a few. But at the end of the day, as the Prime Minister himself said, he made a leader's call. One of the observations that a number of commentators have been making about our government is they've said, well, your agenda is too cluttered, you're fighting on too many fronts. Now, our biggest task at the moment is to get the budget under control, and that means getting the budget through the Senate. There are other important agenda items as well, but
is this going for good?
I can understand the Prime Minister's view, and I accept the Prime Minister's view that the government needs to focus on a smaller number of core priorities, and that was the reason for his decision.
Attorney General George Brandis, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks, David.